people send me a lot of testimony type stuff to listen to when nurses and healthcare workers go to testify before like committees and legislators to try to get certain pieces of pending legislation passed, often about safe staffing or violence or, any of the other issues. I listen to a lot, like a lot of these. And I have to say that, in my opinion, we're dropping the ball a lot of the time because we are not making it real and tangible to the people receiving it. Because remember, they're not clinicians, okay? So they don't know. So we're using medical terminology that, goes over their head, or we're saying catchphrases that to us are meaningful, but to them really isn't. So saying things like unsafe staffing or moral injury, burnout, they kind of know what that is, but it's not real to them, so we really need to work on bridging that gap of making it real. Honestly, in my opinion, these people need to be shocked into action, and God knows we have shocking stories aplenty, right? So use them, instead of saying unsafe staffing, say, I know of at least 2 patients last month that probably wouldn't have died if I wasn't so understaffed, instead of saying moral injury. What does moral injury look like to you? That looks like me having a panic attack and crying in my car every day before my shift or the night before I have to go back to work. That looks like me having to go on antidepressants. Or instead of saying nurses are fleeing the profession, say, I personally know of 14 nurses that have left not just a job, but the profession in the last year. And they have no intention of coming back. 3 of them are working as real estate agents or whatever. It's not because they didn't love being a nurse. It's because it's that horrific, So for me to be impressed with a nurse that testified says a lot. So much so that I stalked her and found her and reached out and told her how impressed I was with her recent testimony. And so I want to play it for you, because this is a shining example of what we should all be saying. It's about 6.5 minutes long, but it is worth the watch.
Thank you for hearing me today. I hope everybody got to enjoy their lunch. I know that it is a little bit later in the day, and I'm sure you're all tired, as evidenced by we're dropping like flies here. I find it difficult to feel much sympathy. I can count on one hand the number of uninterrupted 30-minute lunches I have taken during my 12-hour shifts over the last 3 years, and I would still have 2 fingers left to palpate for a pulse. My name is Kylee Ham, and I've been a nurse for more than 10 years. I currently work as a registered nurse at the University of Cincinnati in the emergency department. I precept students, I orient new hires, I teach and orient nurses to triage, I teach our trauma classes, and I provide training to nurses that meet the requirements to work in our shock resuscitation area, the trauma area, the area that you probably think of when you think of emergency department. As a nurse in emergency medicine, it is often said that we don't have a specialty. We are the jack of all trades, but that is inaccurate. Our specialty is triage and turkey sandwiches, but mostly triage. Who is dying right now? Who can't wait? Who is going to suffer irreparable harm if they are triaged incorrectly? I work in a level 1 trauma center, and that means that we get the worst of the worst. I have seen some stuff. I have seen tragedy on every level, and I have seen an incredible amount of death. Today I'm here to bear witness to the imminent death of nursing as we know it, and it is directly related to our working conditions and inadequate staffing. Hospitals have triaged this crisis incorrectly, and irreparable harm has already occurred. Nurses are leaving our profession at unprecedented rates. Safe staffing is a triage emergency. The nursing profession is not dying the death that you might hope one of you or your loved ones get to experience one day. Quick, peaceful, painless, and surrounded by the people that you love. Our profession is dying the death of 1,000 cuts, and unsafe staffing just might be the fatal blow. You have set us up for that fatal blow. You have used the fact that many nurses refer to nursing as a calling. You weaponized our profession against us. You use words like patient abandonment, duty to care, empathy, etc. You view us as tolerant and sacrificial, and as a profession that is not eager to stand up for our rights, lest we be viewed as uncaring and unconcerned for our patients when we demand better working conditions, better wages, or in this case, a hard line on staffing. You call us heroes when you need us, and you turn a blind eye whenever we demand returns on what we have invested for the benefit of our patients. Our bodies, our health, our families, marriages, finances, and our mental well-being, just to name a few. Staffing directly affects our ability to provide the level of care our patients deserve, and oftentimes it places us or our hard-earned licenses in immediate danger. I know myself, I know the nurses that I've worked with over the years, and I know the nurses that I work with now. We care deeply, often to our own detriment. So why is nobody listening to us? And why doesn't anybody care about what we're telling them is killing our profession and hurting our patients? In April of 2021, I had a thyroidectomy due to thyroid cancer. My thyroid was enlarged whenever it was removed. My vocal cord ended up getting stretched and paralyzed during the removal. Luckily, this was temporary, but at the time, no one could say that for certain. My voice was reduced to a whisper. I did not think much of it. I had cancer. This was the price I paid to be cured. I didn't have the luxury of taking an extended amount of time away from work. I returned to work 6 days later with the steri strips and Dermabond over the scar still in place. I quickly found myself in the room of an aggressive patient. I am good at my job. I am good at IV access. This patient was difficult IV access, and multiple nurses had already tried unsuccessfully. I set up my supplies and I explained what I was doing. The patient became increasingly upset. They had been stuck several times already. I explained why we needed IV access, because they needed medication and we needed lab work so that we could figure out what was going on with them. For whatever reason, for no reason at all, the patient continued to grow more agitated. I quickly realized that in the process of setting up my supplies, I had essentially backed myself into a literal corner. We were short-staffed. We're always short-staffed. I couldn't yell for help. I only had a whisper. And it was unlikely that anybody would be close enough to hear me anyway. Luckily, the patient ended up getting tangled up in their monitors that they were hooked up to, and those were the seconds that allowed me to get to the door right as they chucked their call light at the wall where I had just been standing. When I go to work, I am verbally assaulted, I am cussed out, I am threatened, I've been slapped, I've been kicked, I've been spit on, bitten, been headbutted. I have had any number of things thrown at me, including bodily fluids, all of them. Don't even get me started on sexual advances and sexual assault that I have experienced. I meant it when I said all bodily fluids. That night, I went on Amazon as soon as I got home and I ordered a microphone with a speaker that I clipped to my scrubs for the next 9 months every time I went to work. In what alternate universe did I end up in a profession that I have such a high likelihood of being assaulted and no guarantee that we will be sufficiently staffed that somebody will be available to help me? There's research and peer-reviewed literature available. Numerous polls have been conducted throughout nursing. You heard about them today. All of it shows the relationship between patient care, patient safety, workplace violence, nurse satisfaction, and nurses that are fleeing the bedside are all the result of unsafe staffing. As workers, we have done our part. We have gone up the chain of command. We have notified every level of management and hospital administration and CEOs. The only thing we have to show for it are more checklists to complete and more questions about what could we have done differently. More work. Stop calling us heroes and show us that our work matters. HB 285 mandates minimum staffing levels that address the issues I spoke about by requiring hospitals to put patients and staffs over profit, and provide a minimum level of staffing to meet the needs of patients and keep nurses safe. As elected officials, you have a fiscal and ethical duty to Ohioans. You have a duty to ensure that Ohioans receive safe, quality care, and you should be listening to the ones that are actually standing at the bedside of these patients providing that care. We have a fundamental understanding of what the requirements are and what we need to meet those levels of care. I'm proud to say that earlier this month I was elected president of RNA, that is our local nursing union at UCMC. My 1,600 union sisters and brothers will be assessing your ability to triage this bill. It's life or death for our patient and our profession. Do not let this bill bleed out on the table. Do not let this bill die in your waiting room. Safe staffing is an emergency. So thank you for letting me speak, and please take care of yourselves, because without legislation that mandates safe staffing, nurses probably won't be around too. Questions?